two American destroyers faced an entire Japanese fleet. Outnumbered and outgunned, they sailed straight toward certain death. The enemy force stretched across the horizon. Massive battleships and cruisers carried enough firepower to destroy the small American fleet many times over. Every sailor understood the danger. They were facing one of the most powerful naval forces Japan had assembled during the entire war. The date was October 25th, 1944. The Second World War was entering its final and most brutal phase. American forces were supporting the liberation of the Philippines. Few expected a major Japanese fleet to suddenly appear nearby. Lookouts first noticed dark silhouettes emerging through the morning haze. At first, many believed they were friendly ships. Within minutes, binoculars revealed the truth. The approaching vessels belonged to the Imperial Japanese Navy and were closing fast. Alarm spread across the American formation. Sailors rushed to battle stations, while officers searched desperately for options. The situation looked hopeless. The Japanese possessed larger ships, heavier guns, and far greater numbers than the Americans. Most commanders would have chosen retreat. What happened next would become one of the greatest acts of courage in naval history. Then Captain Ernest Evans made a decision few men expected to hear. Instead of retreating, he ordered his ship to attack. The USS Johnston turned sharply toward the enemy fleet. Sailors watched in disbelief as the destroyer accelerated into danger. Ahead of them stood battleships many times larger than their own vessel. Yet nobody questioned the captain's order. The Japanese fleet soon opened fire. Massive shells screamed through the air toward the American ships. Giant columns of water erupted around the Johnston. Each explosion reminded the crew how close death truly was. Despite the barrage, the destroyer continued charging forward. The crew focused only on reaching torpedo range. Smoke covered the sea as enemy shells landed closer and closer. Still, the American ship refused to slow down. Every sailor knew the odds were terrible. Yet courage spread across the deck faster than fear. As the distance closed, torpedo crews prepared their weapons. The moment they trained for had finally arrived. Captain Evans watched the enemy through binoculars. He waited patiently for the perfect opportunity to strike. The Japanese commanders could hardly believe what they were seeing. A small destroyer was charging directly toward them. Most warships would have attempted escape. The Johnston instead pushed deeper into the heart of the enemy fleet. Suddenly, the order was given. Torpedoes launched from the destroyer and raced across the water. Sailors held their breath as the weapons sped toward the Japanese cruisers. Seconds felt like hours. Then a violent explosion shattered the horizon. One of the torpedoes had found its target. The successful strike stunned the enemy fleet. Few expected such a dangerous attack from a destroyer. Encouraged by the hit, American ships increased their resistance. The battle quickly became fierce and chaotic. Shells, smoke, and fire transformed the peaceful sea into a battlefield, unlike anything the sailors had imagined. Enemy gunners concentrated their fire on the Johnston. The destroyer soon became the center of attention. Several direct hits slammed into the ship. Steel twisted apart as explosions tore through the vessel. Crew members rushed to contain fires and rescue wounded sailors. The battle showed no sign of slowing. Even after suffering serious damage, the Johnston continued firing every gun that still worked. The destroyer's resistance confused Japanese commanders. They believed they were facing a much larger force. Valuable time continued slipping away. Meanwhile, American carriers behind the destroyers were moving to safety. The sacrifice of a handful of ships was beginning to protect thousands of American lives. On board the Johnston, ammunition supplies were running low. Damage continued spreading throughout the vessel. Many sailors were exhausted, wounded, or both. Yet nobody considered giving up the fight. Captain Evans moved across the damaged ship, encouraging his crew. His calm confidence inspired everyone around him. Enemy shells continued striking the destroyer. Each impact pushed the ship closer to destruction. Somehow the Johnston remained afloat. The crew kept fighting long after many expected them to surrender. Fires burned across the Johnston as enemy shells continued finding their mark. The ship was now fighting for survival. Water poured through damaged sections of the hull. Engineers worked desperately to keep the destroyer afloat. Communication systems were failing one by one. Still, the crew refused to abandon their stations. Around them, the battle continued raging. Thick smoke covered the sea as ships fought at close range. Captain Evans knew the Johnston could not survive much longer, yet he remained with his crew until the very end. More enemy shells struck the destroyer. The damage became overwhelming, and the ship finally began losing power. With no hope of saving the vessel, Evans gave the order every sailor feared hearing: abandon ship. Survivors climbed into the ocean as their destroyer slowly disappeared beneath the waves. Many never returned home, but the sacrifice was not in vain. The Japanese fleet lost valuable time and failed to destroy its main targets. Against impossible odds, a handful of American sailors changed the course of a battle. Their courage became a legend that lives on today.